In my last video, I talked a little bit about why I had such a close connection with Neverwinter Nights, the lack of internet connection back then, and also the lack of proper computer. I recalled an interesting episode, my life, which was a sort of a substitute for me actually playing the game, and that was me using a sort of an app, a software that um, that was developed in my country. It was an assortment of walkthroughs, cheats, tips, uh, funny images, short stories, and it had some other sections that I never really cared about. But uh, for me, the most important section was the walkthrough section, which I would just go through as a little child, and instead of playing the game or being able to actually experience what the walkthrough was describing, I would just read the walkthrough, and this way I came for the first time in contact with. Usually, I would focus on RPGs because that's the genre that I really care about. That's what I enjoy the most while playing. I don't mind playing FPS or MMOs or anything like that, but RPGs have a very special spot in my heart, and this was the way I was able to experience somehow playing them. I was really into books ever since I was like 6 years old, even on an, I would say, a little bit autistic level, that I would bring Lord of the Rings into school when I was in my first grade, and I would read it actually. So reading these walkthroughs for me wasn't exactly a downgrade compared to playing the game. Obviously, whenever I was able to get to actually play the games, um, I really enjoyed it. But this was part of my childhood, just waiting for the next update of the software that I would usually either get from school or from one of my friends use a USB and install it, and I would just go through the newest updates to the walkthroughs, and I would just enjoy reading them. The other way for me to get to play games uh, were gaming magazines, which came out even those 2 decades ago. They would come out with usually an older games, even back then, older games. I am pretty sure that was how my father got to experience Arx Fatalis for the first time. It was through one of these games. They were usually accompanied by a CD with some demos, DVD, and uh, on top of that, there would be one or two, sometimes even more, full games. Again, they were older games, not really well-known games. Only on some occasions there was something that was a bit more mainstream. But yeah, that was another way for me to experience gaming um, outside of the software that I mentioned before, or uh, going to my friends who had internet connection to experience online play, or school, where again we had big sessions of obviously Counter-Strike. Everyone played Counter-Strike back then. I got to play WoW. Probably not going to talk about it on this channel, fortunately, because it doesn't really fit the main reason why this channel even exists. So, but yeah, that's another small trip down the memory lane. I know that I used to frequently go to one of my friends who had Call of Duty, and I would just watch him play Call of Duty because on the one hand I wasn't really into it. It wasn't something that I would care about. There was no story, nothing, so I had no reason to really care about the game. But on the other hand, I was quite intrigued by it, by the fact that there were other people playing the same game at the same time. It was interesting. These were the times. Again, there is no concise timeline. This is just me jumping from memory to memory. So don't get too hooked on that. And well, that's about it. I'll have a little bit more to talk about in regards of my first gaming experience, but yeah, I think it's time for some more Neverwinter Nights. Today is Docks, the last district before the attempt to create a cure for the plague, and the last section of the first chapter. So I still vividly remember this section because of an item called Smuggler's Coins. They were used in an auction. They were a secondary currency that you were able to obtain from groups of thugs roaming the streets of the Docks district, and I would always try my absolute best to gather every single one of them that I was able to get my hands on, even though I wasn't able to even spend all of them in the auction after buying everything that I could. But still, it was my little bit of OCD. I absolutely just had to get them all. So the two main antagonists are two captains of pirates. One of them is slightly less evil, so the main reason obviously for visiting this district is to retrieve the last part of the cure, which is held by the captains, a cockatrice. So you have to make your way through either a tavern that offers the auction where you can spend the smuggler's coins I mentioned before, or there are other entrances, and sooner or later you rescue a partner, wife of one of the captains that was held by the other in attempt to reveal the location of the other enemy captain. And by the end of the chapter, you go through aqueducts, you actually meet a man called Charon, which is an obvious reference to the ferryman from the old Greece mythology that ferries the souls of the dead to the hell, and he allows you movement through the aqueducts, and in the end the meeting with the captains kill one, the bad guy, and the good guy escapes, and you'll get the cockatrice feather, which is what you need for creating the cure. Now, when you uh, give Arbet all the parts of the cure that you need, then they'll begin to conjure the cure with the help of the Helm's priests of Helm, uh, who turn out to be uh, actual bad guys, uh, evil cultists. Their leader steals the cure and escapes to the Helm's Hold, and your quest now is follow him, dispatch him, and retrieve the cure. So, uh, we will find out that there actually are true believers, true priests of Helm, and then there are the false ones, the cultists, who are trying their best to destroy Neverwinter. So no matter your alignment, you are tasked with dealing with the false ones. You can save one of the true helmets. You can meet uh, some other NPCs and orc that gives you a little bit of information. Then there are some rather tough fights if you are playing the game regularly. It's not exactly an easy section. Once you are inside of the hole, there are a few interactable events like an altar that you can deal with in both evil and good ways. Uh, the good way is the harder way, but you'll get a bit more rewards. You're gonna get some more information about what's to come in your adventures. On the second floor, you meet one of the people that you were interacting with near Arbet, Antic. You were able to deliver some notes from assassins that tried to kill you throughout their journey, um, gathering the parts of the cure. And now he knows that the main villain, Dester, actually betrayed Neverwinter, but unfortunately the damage is done, and the people of Neverwinter will want some sort of retribution. They will need someone to take blame for what happened. So you'll talk to him, get the location of Dester, some more background on why he did what he did, and then it's the confrontation with the main villain of this chapter. That's Dester. There is a scripted surrender when you deal enough damage to him, and you can ransack the place before leaving. There are some items that you need for your followers and other rare items, rare equipment. So you obviously want to take care of that before you leave with him. And that's the end of the first chapter. So next time it's the second chapter. I don't exactly remember it as well as I do the first one, so I'm guessing there will be the journey through the second chapter will be a bit shorter, I guess. We'll see.